Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we've got everybody. Well, I guess, Betsy, are you on video yet?
Well, no, because but I found the little button. It says start video.
Can you press it?
I'm afraid to. It'll take over again.
Go.
Can't start. Failed to start video camera. Please select another video camera in settings.
Yeah. So, so Betsy was on the screen and dominating the whole thing, whereas we normally would toggle around based on who was talking, would become the full screen. And then Betsy did something, and now she's not on. Now she doesn't have access to the camera.
So it's either the whole thing or nothing, right?
Panelist or a co-host, if possible.
I don't think Betsy's a co-host. She's just a panelist, just like everybody else is supposed to be. I'm the only host.
Panelist, just so I can see, because right now everything's working as intended. I see you, and then when Betsy speaks, I see Betsy. So if you can promote me to a panelist and promote me to a co-host, I have a little bit more visibility on what's going on. I could better help.
So how do I do that?
Go to the attendee list and promote me to a panelist.
Okay, attendee participant list.
Yeah.
Okay, and you are.
Okay. Yeah, because right now everything's hopping around.
Everything's hopping around?
Yeah, when you speak, I see you. When Betsy speaks, I see her. When anybody else speaks, I see them.
Now, Betsy's camera, though, I don't see Betsy. Nobody
I'm still
else.
here.
Yeah, that's right. I just see her name. The camera is not on.
Yeah, so how do I promote you to a co-host?
Click more next to my name and make me a panel.
And you are who?
Jose.
I don't see Jose on here.
What do you see in the attendee list, not the panelist?
Oh, attendee list. Sorry. Okay. Where is the attendee list? Where do I find?
At the very top, you'll see something that says panelist, and you'll see something right next to it that says attendee. You clicked on this earlier.
Okay, participants, attendees. Okay, sorry about that. Jose, more, promote to panelist or promote to panelist?
Yeah.
Okay.
And whoever is not talking should put themselves on mute so that we don't have a lot of background noise during the conversations, please.
Are you on yet?
Who is it? Yeah, I'm here. Who is it who you are missing? Betsy has her camera off. She just needs to turn on her camera.
Okay, Betsy has her camera off. She needs to turn on her camera. So I'll put you on speaker.
Bottom left.
Betsy, do you see he says the bottom left.
Okay. I don't see that.
How were you in there before? What did you do to get you were running this whole show at the beginning?
I didn't mean to.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. I just turned the camera on the computer.
Okay, turn that on.
If I do, this is what happens.
Go ahead.
Okay, there I am. But I don't see anybody else now.
So I'm going to go ahead and hop into the meeting with audio so that they can hear me.
Okay, very good. He's going to hop into the meeting with audio so he can give us some direction.
Okay.
Hi, Betsy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Betsy, what do you...
Okay, here is Jose, Betsy.
What do you see at the bottom of the screen, probably underneath my name?
I see chat, share, record, more.
Click more.
Invite. Oh, wait, no, excuse me. Yes, invite. That's all I see. Invite Alt 1 or Alt L. It's all that comes up with more.
Invite. So to the left of more, do you see anything?
Record, chat, participants.
Mm-hmm.
Start video.
There you go.
You're in business.
How about that?
Perfect. All right. I think
That's a lot of work.
Thanks, Jose.
you're very welcome. You guys have a good day.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Seems like we always have this challenge, but fortunately, the Zoom support people are very helpful.
Well,
It's terrific. So now that we are all here, I want to welcome everyone to our focus group call this evening. And I am very pleased we're very pleased to have Betsy Spanbauer, who will be making the presentation this evening on the subject of dealing with unknown, unseen energies. And Betsy is the youngest person I know who walked 3 miles to school every morning. And also, the other interesting fact is that Betsy's toenail inspired her to pursue her passion. So without further ado, we'll invite Betsy to charge ahead with her presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll see how it goes because now I have to put that other big screen up, right? PowerPoint, I've never done it before, so I'll just get started and jump back and forth. That's all right.
Very good.
Okay. Let's start from the beginning. There we go. Crystal Rose Evolving, a visit from Ascended Master Hilarion. And that's pretty interesting. Oh, now I can't figure out how to get rid of it.
We'll just keep going, Betsy, and we'll carry on as we go.
All right, okay. What I wanted to do was jump back and forth, but I guess I might not have that option. Isn't that odd?
At the bottom, if you toggle to the bottom, there's the share button.
Okay.
And if you click on the share button, hopefully that will allow you to.
That I didn't do it right. Let me see.
Because we had it down at the beginning, Betsy, although you were sort of running the show there for a while.
That's right. It's not my okay, I'm just not sure how to do this now.
You might see the share button at the top also. It's usually green and it says share. And when you click on that, you should be able to access what you want to show us.
Okay. I don't see a green thing.
Well, when you were down at the bottom, when you were going down at the bottom, is there not a share button where you started the video in that bottom panel?
Right. What it's doing is it's filled my whole screen. I don't have any things.
You have to bring your cursor down to the bottom. You know,
Yep.
your little
Right.
cursor.
Yep, tried that and it didn't happen. Well, darn. Oh, now maybe that will.
That's me. I pressed the share button myself.
Okay.
And that's what I'm hoping you're able to do.
All right, but the problem was it covered my screen on the bottom. All right, well, we'll just start and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. Can't even start. I guess I would like to start with the first event in my life that was unusual was after a really tragic accident in the family. I woke up and there was an ancient man standing at the foot of my bed, brown, heavy drape, and I was terrified because there was no language to explain his being there, and I don't think he'll ever show up again. But I know now it was an ascended master, Hilarion, and he's with me, he works with me, he's a healer, and I appreciate his presence. I just don't want to be startled like that again. But that was the beginning, and that was maybe 50 years ago. The next thing would happen perhaps 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and my 8th great-grandmother was a witch who was hung in Salem, Susanna North Martin. And my daughter found her stone and took me to see it. And when I stood there, I started vibrating. And that was a first. I mean, I had never experienced such a thing. And I didn't know really what to do about it. Well, she said, what should you do? What are you supposed to do? And that was a new language, a new experience. But I work with flower essences now. They're gem essences. And I had some spiritual ones with me, and I spun on it and, yes, used those. So I dropped a few drops in the ground at my feet and by that stone. And there was a calmness that was really so powerful. And when that was done, I remembered seeing a posting, and it was Facebook. My cousin had posted it, and it was the Nubble Lighthouse in York, Maine. And it was an early morning shot, and it had lights, really odd lights floating around it. And I wondered if perhaps it was stuck souls, whether they had crashed on the shoals there. Not sure, but I asked again with my pendulum, and there were 5 souls there. And I did the same thing. I went and I had the same experience. It just was a calmness that went over me, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no language. It was like working blindfolded, but it seemed to help. And I spun again and asked if they were comfortable. Were they gone? Were any of them left? And they were all gone. So I just kept going. I thought that's pretty good. The next thing that happened was I was picking apples in Vermont, where this is about a mile down the road from the orchard that I was born in. There's another story for you, Robert. And I was just above where I took this picture at picking apples, and my signal is always a cough, a really heavy cough. Across the way, about in the middle of the screen, you can't see it, but is this old drawing depicts Fort Ticonderoga. And it was a Revolutionary fort that's, here, and it's actually a fort that changed hands, I think 4 times, between the English and the French and us. Green Mountain Boys took it over once. There were a lot of battles there, a lot of Native American skirmishes, a lot of painful events. And again, I asked, was there somebody stuck? Did somebody need to be released? And there were 3. And again, you could feel the ground shift. It just was, I just kept going. That's the way it is. A few years went by, and this is the scene that used to look out my kitchen window, and it's quite different now. I guess I don't have the second picture, but there were 2 eyeballs. Now, that screen of leaves and vines, just a tangled web of green. When you walk out the front door of the house, you're looking at this wall of leaves, and all of a sudden there were these two distinct openings, and oftentimes even rounder than that. It was a little bit spooky. Couldn't figure it out. And as the universe would have it, there was a woman that stopped by, and she ended up staying here 2 weeks, and she was part Native American, and I'm glad she did, because I wouldn't have been able to figure it out. We were talking one night, and she said, there's a man here, a Native man, standing behind me, and I didn't know her very well, and I thought, well, he must be your friend. You better, no, I guess I said, you have to leave now, and I tried to sound strong and self-righteous and whatever, and he didn't leave, and I said, well, he must have come in with you. Why don't you see what you can do? The shorter story is that the next morning when we got up, I said to her, there's two Frenchmen, and they're just behind those leaves, and our boundary border is just behind those leaves, about 10 feet behind it. And apparently these French fellows were there, stuck souls, and the Native American was their spokesman. And he was trying to get them help. So that process was pretty crazy. And I figured out it would be stone essences again, and I tested it, figured out what stones to use, and pulled together an essence, and they were gone. But 2 weeks later, actually by the time when we helped them on their way, 3 or 4 days later, Doug and I were leaving to go to Gettysburg for their 150th celebration. And I said to Doug, I can't imagine why we're going. He's the Civil War buff, I'm not. And there were going to be millions of people there celebrating 150 years, and I found a bed and breakfast to stay in. And but I knew before we left that it was going to be a work time for me. And because I'd worked with these two French fellows that were over the wall, I had an idea of how to do it. And when I left, I had taken 1 bottle of gem essence for the Vermonters, because I figured it would be Vermonters that would be asking for help. And there were in fact 12. But there was a bigger bottle, and I kept getting, you need more, and it's a different essence for this group. And it was for over 100, I think 105. And that, I was flying by the seat of my pants, and we got to Gettysburg, and we got there on, I don't remember what day it was. It was a Monday that week. And I said, let's go to the cemetery. We need to go to the cemetery. And we went to the Vermont stone. Of course, Betsy's always going to start with the Vermont stone. And there were 12 there. And again, I used the essences, and they were released. But I happened to notice the trees as I left, and this is one, really so sad. The tree before that, it's a shame that I have such a small picture of it, because if you were standing back, this is actually one of the eyeballs, and it has huge teardrops coming from it. So it was really an amazing experience. I mean, there were lots of things that happened on that trip that were unexpected. Going into an old restaurant and knowing that there were 3 women souls there, and it was one thing after another. Moving right along, this is an ermine, and I should have used the larger picture, but I'm sure you can see the orbs there. This one
Now,
up.
Betsy, excuse me for interrupting. I'm not seeing those pictures.
Oh, you're not. Have you not seen any of them?
I've not seen any of these pictures as of yet.
Oh, what a shame. Okay, here we go. There's Susanna North Martin's granite boulder with a marker for her house, and 495 outside Boston was being taken down, and folks made a marker. That was where her house stood.
Now, let me ask, Janice, are you seeing these pictures?
I don't see him. Can you?
I don't see any of them either. And I know she had mentioned she didn't find the share button. And Betsy, I'm wondering if the pictures you want to show us are enlarged and they're actually covering up your Zoom screen. And if you could maybe hover the mouse, if you have a mouse, across the pictures and try to slide them to one side or the other, you may see the Zoom screen and you may see that share button. Just an idea.
Yep, I'm not. It fills my whole screen, so I really can't. This is terrible. I'm so sorry because it's a.
So the pictures you're showing us, are they in like a document folder?
They're in oh dear, I can't. What is it? PowerPoint.
Okay, can you minimize your PowerPoint then? Just minimize that and see if you see Zoom then.
No, well, the pictures are just absolutely covering the whole screen. And how would I get out of it?
Can you minimize up in the upper right-hand corner? That little,
yeah, I don't see that. Let me see.
Try to push do you use a mouse? Try to push the mouse. Okay, try to push the cursor as far up to the top right-hand corner as you can and see if then you see the minimize button. You know, Deborah is better at PowerPoint than me. I should let her talk to you. I'm going to stop talking.
It's very strange. Share, save to cloud, size. Oh, this might do it. Huh. Well,
because it just seems like, does everyone else have a panel along the bottom of their picture, which they can access when they move their cursor down to the bottom?
Yeah, I do.
I have.
And it says share in a green box.
Yeah. So I just can't, you know, I recognize that if I don't put my cursor down there, I don't get it. But if I drag my cursor down to the bottom, it'll show me that panel along the bottom. But we're missing, unfortunately, your pictures, Betsy. And of course, we had them originally.
Right. And you were watching them, right?
Yeah. It's hard to believe.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry because...
Oh, there it is. There's your picture.
That's the labyrinth. Is that what you're looking at?
I see a labyrinth.
That's the front of my computer. If I extend
okay,
the power...
now we're seeing.
Ooh, I see yeah, it looks like a.
So just continue with your presentation, Betsy, and you can toggle through the pictures.
Can you all see that?
Yep. Yes. Well, there's the cannon on the left-hand side.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well then before that was Susanna North Martin's marker.
Okay, very good.
And then Noble Light in Maine.
Okay.
Exquisitely beautiful.
Beautiful.
Now, this was taken, the orchard is behind me. I've got tons of other pictures, but I tried to keep it down. And Fort Ticonderoga, as it's depicted in its ancient painting, is actually down from there and across Lake Champlain. But this town of Shoreham was where the Green Mountain Boys traveled to get the fort. It's
okay,
gorgeous.
Very good.
Okay. Now the wall that you didn't see is there.
Oh my gosh.
my sister, who is not happy about the work I do at all, came out of my house looking at this wall, and you know, it's vines, it's woodbine, it's a rose bush that's an invasive rose, and it went from the ground all the way up, totally covered a rock wall that's now bared because we took it down. But those eyes were frightening, scary, concerning. I didn't know. And then this gal stopped unexpectedly. Doug said, "What are you letting her stay with us for 2 weeks?" And I said, "I can swing on her. She's supposed to be here. I don't know anything about her, but she needs a place for 2 weeks." And it happened to be the 2 weeks before we went to Gettysburg. And because of that experience, I was able to figure out the stone essences to use for release. Now, what's important is, after we sent the essences for those 2 French fellows, about 10 days for those holes to completely close up. That's, you know, that's the part that is just mind-boggling when you're coming in by the seat of your pants. So Gettysburg, and one small tree that you really can't see a whole lot of, the Vermont stone, where 12 souls hung out. And that really sad tree was also on the exit as we left. It's really, it was an amazing experience. So then we go by a few years, and there's the ermine that came out of the woods. We've not seen one since. And he came out. I took pictures, and the orbs, I wish they showed up better, but can you see these pictures?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Okay, the bigger picture, more distant picture of the ermine shows these energy balls all around him. Now on the front porch, you see the same pile of rose quartz. Whoops, don't do that. And there's motion to this guy. See how he's floated up?
Yeah.
From the bottom. So that was interesting. After going to one of the Dowser conventions, and I think it was Carolyn Whitehead, and I usually go to her workshops, she pictures orbs, and fairies, and has albums, and I do too as well now. But do you see the blue pearls, the strings of pearls coming down on the right from the top down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's more tucked in the leaves, and there's some on the lower left corner. Hers, she had some that had white 5-point styrofoam stars. And I asked her, "Carolyn, what are those?" And she said, "I don't know, I just call them my star people." So when I got home from the Dowsers convention, I asked, I said, "Well, guys, do I have star people?" And it was, "Yes, you do." So I went, asked where to go, took the pictures. Oh, I see. Okay. Took the pictures, and there they were, my blue string of pearls, my pearl people. Do I have any more information about them? No, not at all. Here is the very first orb and fairy. Now, if I could figure out how to put the magnifying glass up on the fairy, I took that picture to the convention because I took it about a few days before the convention. I thought, oh, I guess I'm supposed to take this picture with me. And Carolyn looked at that and she said, "I've never seen one with such long legs." Didn't faze her at all that it was the strangest looking thing I'd ever seen. But can you see the other orbs throughout that picture that are up in the sky, all over the place, like water drops?
So I can see some of them. They're
faint.
They're somewhat faint. There's a couple not so faint ones.
Right. Well, here's one that I enlarged, the pink one, because I just thought, and that one was in a picture of, I don't know, maybe 40, but there was one larger and pink, and I thought, boy, I better grab that one. So that's that one. The one on the left, I took it to a Healing Touch convention in Hawaii, and a woman was doing a talk on dragons. And she spotted, and I took mine, of course, and so she now uses that in hers. She said, I have never seen such an amazing dragon. How do you know what's out there? This is neat. These are two fairies, and I enlarged the picture. They were just little flecks, just right behind where that wall of leaves was. Now that wall has been taken down, and we've discovered a stone wall under it. This one here is really neat because you can see the spot up here. Again, it was in front of the house. Most of the showings have been in the back. But that's an amazing spot. And I don't know what it is except that it's energy. And the neat thing about them is that back on a night like this, I hadn't seen many orbs, and I said, okay, you guys, I'm only going to take one picture. You guys aren't showing up. And I took one picture, and there must have been hundreds of orbs, all colors, all sizes. And I'm sorry, that picture isn't here. Didn't make the cut. So you've seen the labyrinth, and the labyrinth is absolutely beautiful. 800 pounds of stone I lugged to market. I dowsed it after one of the workshops at the Dowsers Convention, and it's beautiful. It's classic. It's feminine. Goes off to the left, and you'll see more about. There's a bench too in this off to one side. I decided to go out one night and take pictures of the labyrinth. I didn't ask permission. I didn't think about that, but that's actually a heart-shaped rock that the path meanders into the labyrinth. You have to go by that rock. And I walked in that night and looked back and took a picture over it, and you can see the orb, or several orbs there, but huge. And I had not seen them as large as that. On the right, I took several pictures of the entrance to the labyrinth, and that's what's there. I mean, it's such a happy labyrinth, and people walk it and laugh. People walk it and experience wonderful things. It's just grand, and it's just very special. Well, that was a very fine thing for a few years, and then things got a little rough around. I looked out in the yard one morning. Let me see what's next. Yeah, here we go. And that's a bunch of gravel. And a fellow looked at it, and he said, it looks like about 2 5-gallon pails full. And it was absolutely north and south, and the narrower sides, east and west, of course. On the east side of it, about 10 inches from it, was a borehole, which is what I've got my finger in. It only went in about 4 or 5 inches. It was at an angle, and there was not a single rock between the pile and the hole. It was in my husband's way, so he got a shovel and kicked it off into the bushes. But about 6 weeks later, this one showed up, sort of in the same side of the yard. And the only thing I could think of was it had to be some alien activity, but I didn't have any way of understanding it. I know that they're around, or I feel that they're around, and they don't have to make themselves known. If they want to hide out, they can hide out, and they wanted to be known, and it just was frightening for me. Now, you guys don't get to see me this way, right?
Well, we see you on the panel on the right-hand side.
Okay, I don't see it or my name, so that's all right. It was kind of a scary thing because it was a lot of gravel, and it had happened twice. There were also bangs on the house, on the outside of the house.
Now, Betsy, I think that we need you to connect to your picture again. We're seeing your screensaver, the labyrinth.
Okay, All right, there you are.
Yep.
Well, the next picture is the labyrinth, and the bench, the cedar bench that's there. Now, I had a small child that was here a lot. His mother watched him being shoved, and she is very connected with that world and aware of things. Her house was also getting these strange bangings and just a pounding on the outside of the house. Not always on the outside. We have a library, and Doug and I were in there, and there's this huge clap right in front of the library. Just odd things. Then I found myself out on that bench overlooking the labyrinth one afternoon. I've taken naps there. I read, I listen to the birds, the deer come out and have walked, played in the labyrinth while I've sat in the bench. It's been just magic. And I sat there one fall day, and there was a very strange sound behind me. And that's the only way I can describe it. It was eerie. It was like magnolia leaves crunching, not our little lacy leaves. And I grabbed the pendulum and I said, have I got company? Yes. And I asked if they had my best interest in mind. No. Was I in trouble? Was I in danger? Yes. Would I like it? No. Would I be allowed to come back? And the answer was no. So I thought, this is enough. And I went to talk to the fellow who has that kind of information. And he said, you're exactly right, Betsy. They want you out of there. And I went online, I did some reading, and I devised a happy heart land blessing and used crystals on the four corners of the property. I tied one crystal with the other energetically, so that was a very secure setting, I felt. And I smudged afterwards, and it was really neat because I was down in the woods and I thought, how is this ever going to cover my land? Well, it just does. A wind came up and from the right direction and took the sage right up through. It's been an amazing shift, and it was very successful with one exception. And I sat here at the fire pit one afternoon, cold fall afternoon. It was probably 4 months after this experience with the aliens. And the back of the hair went up in my neck, and I thought, I've got company. They're back. I looked over my shoulder and I saw the line fence down in the woods, and I knew that's where they were. They're on the other side. And I grew to my 20-foot height. I got big and nasty, and I marched down there like some really tough guy and asked them if they were with white light, in white light. Did they work in white light? If they were certainly welcome to stay. And if they didn't, they needed to leave. So that was it. I turned around. I never gave them another thought. I never had a nasty feeling. It was, just an amazing experience for me. And it's been, there's been other things. Let's see if I can get out of this now. Stop the share. Would that be it? There we go.
You're becoming an expert.
Well, I've done a couple of things that have come out right. It's been a wild ride, but I didn't have any experience at all. And I just get spoon-fed. I love it. I like being part of this journey, and somewhere I signed up for it. I do a lot with stuck souls or people that have passed, families that I know. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Betsy?
I do. I want to know more about the essences. Do you make them yourself? Are you, what is the source materials? And can you talk about that a little bit more, please?
Absolutely. Michelle Small-Wright, Paralandra Essences is where I started. And her book, Behaving as if the God in All Life Mattered, if you know her work. It's phenomenal. And she's very generous about sharing how to do these things. I don't use flowers. I do use gemstones, and I'm told which ones to use. And I think the most fascinating thing, and it was after the Dowsers Convention, talking to some of the fellows there, and I do holographic imprinting on some when it's required. I use John Butler's bioamplifier sometimes to bring it up to its full peak. It's distilled water in morning sunshine, and whatever the stones that need to be used are the ones that I choose. There is a preservative I choose brandy and vinegar, not one or the other, and it just seems like it's a little easier to take. But I do most of the essence work long distance. You no longer have to put it in your mouth or drop it on your forehead or under your tongue. It's a wonderful process. When I didn't receive her seasonal essence, seasonal essence is 10 drops or flu to protect from flu. I don't want the shot. And nature knows a whole lot more about what's going to be needed this year than somebody's guess. It's not a guessing game when you work with these folks. That's usually a signal for me. I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, that's how they get a hold of me. They shut me up until I figure it out. So I've been using the essences and making them for other people. Can I talk about the essences? Yes. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you, Betsy, where is your obviously this has sort of been a path that has presented itself to you without a lot of training. You sort of have learned as you've went, and then
good teachers
and sources have presented themselves as you have needed them. Where are you going at this point? What is the direction that you're taking with your activity at this time?
Well, I do a lot of healing. I have clients, distance, and my office is here in the house. And so after I've finished with them, they can go walk the labyrinth. It's a nice, it's very strange. Excuse me. There's something that, is it about our talk? No. My husband's, it could be something like that. Let's just hope they'll give me a little more time. They usually stop me in my tracks night or morning, night or day. I really like working with people with heartbeats. You know, that's my passion, because every human that sits in front of you, they're a clean palette, they're a fresh palette, and there are other healers here, and it's just a wonderful experience to be able to work with new people, and I like that. This has been unexpected, certainly. It's been wonderful. A couple weeks ago, I woke up and I smelled gas. Next in the morning, it was very strong. Called the gas company, and they sent somebody out. He put a meter on the tank, and the doors are all open. Now, my husband's got some health challenges, and he's older, and he hadn't awakened yet. All this went on. He didn't have a clue. And the gas man is here, and he said, "You don't have a leak. There's no pressure lost." And I said, "Do I know you?" And he said, "Yes, I put your gas stove in a few years ago and you fixed my shoulder." I said, "Oh, that's nice. It sounds familiar." And I said, "How's your other shoulder?" And he said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to call you, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And I said, all right, I wonder if you're here for that other shoulder. And it was a whole lot more than that. He had some other issues. And as I worked with him, I kept asking, I said, there's more information. There's something I haven't heard, something I haven't heard. And before he finished, he shared 2 different addictions that were really tough. And he needed to get his act together. And I guess I talked to him a couple days ago. He's on a good path. But to be able to support people as they go through this lifetime and do it in a healthier way, it's just such a privilege, and it's so humbling. And I didn't have a gas leak, and I didn't have to open all the windows and doors when it was mighty cold outside. It just got him here.
Yeah, boy, what a great story.
It is. It really is. And it's, it's a privilege. Now, becoming a dowser or being accepted in your group of people that do things quite differently, that's a real nice thing for me. And how I started was Lynn McTaggart had spoken to Healing Touch conventions a couple of times in Colorado. And I had a client, and she started talking to me about Lynn McTaggart speaking to the dowsers. And that was, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe. But that's what drew me in. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of your group.
Well, great. And of course, it's the American Society of Dowsers. This is just a little focus group. But Betsy, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. I very much appreciate it, and I'm glad we got those pictures up. So it worked after all.
It is. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. It was just grand.
Okay. And also, I want to just take a few minutes here because I had heard from, and forgive me for not having her name, I should have it, but the young lady who went to that special training program that she was going to, where she was going to be doing several activities.
Oh, she spoke to us, right? A couple.
Yeah, she was here. Well, she had mentioned that she was leaving on this trip. Okay. And so she is back, or she will be back for the next month's meeting. So I know, Janice, you had mentioned an interest in possibly being a presenter, but I was thinking that I would check with her and make sure, because she would have just returned from that fabulous training program that she had wanted to give us a report on.
That sounds wonderful, because the house that I wanted to tell everyone about, we're in Chicago and we just had a huge election. And so for the 2 months prior to the election, no permits were being written because they make all the city workers go out and politic because it's Chicago. So now they're back to work. The election's over, but the house hasn't gotten its operating permits to continue. So I wouldn't have anything to share. It would be wonderful if she could do it in May, and I'm hoping I would have something for June.
Very good.
That's better.
And then probably next month, I'm going to take a little time after her presentation to talk about how we want to continue on, because there are several different options. We just sort of selected this presentation approach, which is, I think, good because you get a chance to get familiar with what the people are doing and what their background and experience is. And certainly now we have a much better idea on everyone who's given their presentation. But another approach that we could take would be more of a mastermind approach, which would be a format that would allow each of us to maybe for, like, I think right now there's 6 of us on this call. And are there more than 6? Let's see. Yeah, there's more than 6. Well, there's 8 or something. But however many people are on the call, we would divide up the hour, and each person would be able to give a little update on what they've done most recently in their field. Some interesting tidbits about what they've encountered and some new interesting ideas. And then perhaps they'd have a question about something. Other people could answer those questions. And then we move on to Janice. And Janice would do that for about 8 minutes, 5 minutes, or however long she had. Sometimes she wouldn't have anything. And she'd say, well, nothing for me today, but let's move on. And Betsy would have another 8 minutes, and Deborah would have another 8 minutes, and Jan would have another 8 minutes, and Barbara and Eloise. And then our call would be where everybody sort of was a greater participant in what's happening with them in their field or their area of study or interest, things that have come up, or any questions that they might encounter. Like you might encounter something, Betsy, and not know what you're contending with, and say, does anybody have any thoughts or ideas? And maybe somebody would have some insights in that regard. So you might want to start thinking about that as it relates to how we do proceed. So that is what I wanted to bring up. So next month, what I will do is I will check with our next presenter, which I think is going to be ready to go next month. We'll plan on. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll plan on starting that way for next month anyway, and we can have an ongoing discussion about how we wish to proceed, if we want to keep this format or if we want to do switch it a little bit more over to a mastermind format. So, anybody have any comments?
I think I would like to ask, have you guys dealt with orbs and fairies and aliens?
Well, I have dealt in some cases with aliens,
Okay.
but I use a sort of a tube vortex that I establish around that location, and that allows any person in the particular area that I'm doing the space clearing to enter into that, to go to the area or location where they can best serve, where they're best served in their continued growth and expansion. And that would include aliens as well as anybody else. So that's just the approach I use. But I don't encounter them on a regular basis.
Thank you.
And I work with what I call them the star beings, not the aliens. So I work with the star beings a lot in most of my clearings. So although I've had some run-ins that have not been fun, the star beings that I work with at this time, it's like with Robert, I establish a very strong field of God consciousness before I start working. And so I only invite the star beings who are aligned with that God consciousness. So that really helps me to avoid some of the ones who would have not my best interests at heart.
Right.
Well, Barbara, wouldn't those actually, instead of being aliens, be spiritual beings that would be more in the area of like Betsy's Hilarion, or a angel, or some type of spiritual being who is assisting you in your work, rather than a quote unquote alien?
They're like beings. They have a different frequency. So say if the Andromedans come in, they have a particular frequency. Syrians have a different one. So I recognize them by the frequency, and sometimes they don't even tell me what they are. I mean, sometimes I can actually see like they're coming in on an orb or a ship, you know, where they're actually coming in and landing. But usually they will identify themselves, or like I said, it's just different frequencies. Like angels have a different frequency than the ascended masters. So it's kind of recognizing all those different frequencies. But definitely there's different groups that I've worked with that are star beings. And what's interesting is when I work with the Native Americans, they often request star beings because they believe that they're from the stars. So sometimes when you have to clear something where there's a lot of native tragedy or burial ground, something like that, I'll ask, what would it take for us to change this energy, for you to leave this area? You know, what is it going to take? And they will request star beings to come in.
Ah.
Yeah.
And these star beings would be considered benign beings, correct?
They're well, when I work with them, they're like, they don't mean you harm.
Right.
They're definitely of a higher frequency vibration. They can do things that other beings perhaps can't do. So they do a lot of work with crystalline structures. So in other words, like the one Indian burial ground that I had to deal with, where a house was built on top of it. So you can imagine the anger at the owners because this house was built on top of it. So what we did was we actually took all the energies from the burial ground, and I didn't do it, the star beings. I watched them pull all that energy from the earth, and they put it in a crystal. And they gave the crystal to the chief. And so the chief was able to, you know, take that with them. And then they all left. All of those spirits left. And then when they left, I said to the star beings, okay, well, you can't take all that energy from the earth because now there's this huge void in the earth. And they actually put a new crystalline template into the earth that would heal the trauma that had happened there. So, but I don't see them as benign so much as very high beings that help you.
Yeah. Okay.
And they can do things that perhaps an angel can't do, or although Archangel Michael works with the star beings all the time. So, so I see him working with the star beings, you know. He's still the captain of everything.
Yeah. Well, very good. Very good.
I have something to add to what Barbara just said. My husband is, he's seeing a lot of folks, and they aren't folks that he knows. They're dressed in clothes, just regular clothes. But as he lays in bed, there are a bunch of them, sometimes 2 or 3. And one, you know, they put things under the bed. They seem to cover him up. And so when we went to talk to the fellow that helped me with the aliens, and he said that they were aliens, and that's not the best word for them. I called them nihilists for a while because I was afraid of them and didn't know what to do. But star beings, that's really that's respectful. And he said that they were cloaked in, you know, clothes that wouldn't alarm him, and he finds them very friendly, but they're there helping him finish his work. And that was the first time that I had ever heard of that kind of support other than being yanked off into a ship and going for a ride. You know?
Right.
So I'm grateful that he's taken that. You know, he's just curious. I've been a shock to him. He was a good Catholic boy, and I started doing all these strange things, and he kept saying, "Don't tell me anymore, Betsy, because I can't handle it." Well, he's adjusted. 35 years, he's adjusted well.
You broke him in well.
I did. But thank you, Barbara, for those comments, because that's so helpful.
Yes.
So what I've heard about calling the different frequencies, the different consciousness and star beings. So aliens, and it's a word that's used politically all the time now. It's a negative. It defines, it represents separation and the other. And it always refers to something negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it is a derogatory term. And if you could switch to star beings or just advanced consciousness, and you could call angels and fairies and all elementals advanced consciousness, as far as I'm concerned. If you can communicate without words, we're so remedial compared to so many levels of communication. So that's why I try not to use the word alien, just because of all those connotations.
That's a good point. You know, when you all watch the TV, they have alien, whatever versus who knows what. It's generally not a star being. Okay. Well, again, everyone, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Betsy, you were great, and you're a IT wizard.
Well, I didn't mean to take center stage for so long.
Well, we figured it out anyway. So thank you very much, and I'll keep you posted on our next month's meeting. Thank you.
Great, wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you.